Hello guys, this is your friend and we are back with a new fanfic. Which is, what if Naruto returned broken, only to find his first love in Hinata again? Naruto times Hinata times Sakura times Mai, Part 1. And if you enjoy this fanfic then please press the like button and subscribe to my channel for more fanfic like this. And now let's start the fanfic. Sakura, a girl I thought I loved. She meant everything to me and I would have died to protect her. Hell, I even came close to dying a few times to save her life. I beat Haku, something her precious Uchiha couldn't do. I protected her and the Uchiha bastard from that snake freak when that Uchiha bastard was too afraid to fight back. I saved her from Gaara after Sasuke failed to save her. I got a hand put through my chest by that Uchiha bastard when I was trying to bring him back for her, just to make her happy. And not one time did she ever say thank you. Not one time did she spare me a second glance. Kakashi-sensei, a man I thought would teach me and treat me fairly. I respected him. He is an amazing ninja even still. He taught that Uchiha bastard anything that he wanted to know whenever he asked. He gave the Uchiha bastard a taijutsu style that he had never once worked a day in his life to learn. He taught the Uchiha bastard an assassination technique that was later used in an attempt to kill me. I asked him many times to teach me something, anything that would help to become better. He did teach me something though. He taught me that there is no such thing as unbiased. The Uchiha bastard, I won't even call him by his first name, to me he is no better than his older brother that is his only ambition is to kill. I once thought so highly of him. I aspired to become better than him or at the very least become his equal. Every time I did something that he could not he scoffed at me and called me, dead last. Every time I surpassed him, he hated me for it instead of congratulating me for it. And even now, when he has betrayed us all, it is still him, the last of the, oh so precious Uchiha that is still receiving praise from the village. Why must these people who are so important to me continually disappoint me? Why must all of these awful things continue to befall me? So finally I turn to the one thing that is mine and mine alone to control, my own fate. Kyuubi. Naruto yelled at the top of his lungs as he walked confidently toward the cell that imprisoned the demon. Kyuubi. What do you want, brat? Asked the clearly annoyed fox demon. You know about my situation. You've seen everything though my eyes. He asked. Yes, what of it? What do you want from me? What you change about it? Can it be changed? Asked Naruto angrily. First, I would not be imprisoned in here, said the Kyuubi angrily. Well, that's not an option, so tell me, what can I do to change it? Demanded Naruto. Interesting, said Kyuubi pacing before his cage. First, I would have embarrassed that Uchiha bastard at every occasion possible from the first moment you met. If he wishes to hate you, hate him back, it has always worked for me. Second, I would have found a teacher if the one assigned was unwilling to teach you. Third, I would have dropped that useless female and sought out one that would bear you strong pups. Fourth, I would have never stooped to pranking those pesky villagers, they are a waste of time and the attention they give you is not the attention you want. Fifth, I would actually spend time reading and expanding more than just my jutsu library. Sixth, I would demand access to your father's jutsu and title. Seventh, I would take advantage of the 7,000-year-old demon sealed inside of me for more than just the occasional chakra boost. Eighth, I would find my own taijutsu style unique to my build. Ninth, I would find a weapon that works for me beyond the common kunai and shuriken. 10th, I would never be caught dead wearing such bright colors. Naruto considered Kyuubi's thoughts for a moment. First, there is nothing I can do about the Uchiha bastard now that he's gone. Second, I've got Arrow Sennin now. Third, is there such a female in this village? Fourth, I haven't pranked the village since I became a genin and I don't care about their attention anymore now that I've got Tsunade Nekken, Shizune Nekken, Arrow Sennin, and Iruka Sensei. Fifth, what should I read? Sixth, who the hell was my father? Seventh, why would you want to help me? Eighth, who could teach me? Ninth, why? 10th, you brightly colored and stick out like a sore thumb, who are you to criticize me on my appearance? Kyuubi smiled, or at least it looked like a smile. I have something in mind but let me answer your questions first. Ero Sennin was not here for you in your youth when you need someone to start teaching you. There are many such females, you just have to find one or two. You should read books on strategy, mathematics, history, negotiation, and psychology. You should ask the third who your father was. If I were to help you, I would want something in return. That freak Meta guy knows hundreds of taijutsu styles. Weapons are like personalities, they each tell you something about the user and many times act as an extension of that person's body. Take my tails for example. I use them like whips to draw in my enemies before my claws shred their bodies to pieces. The reason I can be brightly colored and you can't is because I'm big enough and strong enough to kick the of any challenger I might come across. I can't change the past, but I can use that information for the future, said Naruto. Thanks letting me use your 7,000 years of experience, you dumb bastard. Who says you can't change the past? Asked Kyuubi with a chuckle. What are you talking about? Asked Naruto. If, and this is a big if, I were to give you a way to travel back in time to relive parts of your life, what would you give to me in return? Asked Kyuubi. What do you want exactly? What I want is freedom, but you'll not grant me that. So instead I will settle for a bit of change of scenery. 1. This place is a filth hole not worthy of one like me, so I want you to change it. 2. I want a window to the outside world so that I can see what you see. Think of it like a big TV connected to your eyes. 3. If that Uchiha bastard tries to flee again, I want you to kill him. But most importantly, the Akatsuki wishes to possess me for whatever reason. This is simply unacceptable, so part of this deal includes the extermination of all their members. Any questions? How do I clean this place up and how do I give you a window? Asked Naruto. Naruto had already decided that if he went back in time he would kill Sasuke if the opportunity ever arose, along with exterminating the Akatsuki, so that was no big deal for him. Creating a window just requires you add a second seal to the gate, and I can tell you how, but it won't do any good until you've actually gone back in time. To clean this place you need to get yourself into a healthier state of mind. The last few months this place has brightened up with the acceptance of that woman and that super pervert. This means we need you to focus on people who are going to acknowledge you and ignore those who don't. So, do we have a deal? Asked Kyuubi. Will it hurt? Asked Naruto. Me? Not in the slightest. You? More pain than you've ever imagined possible, said Kyuubi with a light laugh. How fun, said Naruto sarcastically. So, how far back will you send me? How old were you when you entered the academy? 6, said Naruto. Then 6 is where we'll go back to, said Kyuubi. I'm sure you could pass the Genin exam on your arrival to the academy, but don't. Excel in your classes and embarrass the Uchiha bastard, but don't even think about taking the exam until I say it is okay. Now, do we have a deal? Deal? Show me what to do, said Naruto. Break. Kyuubi, you really are a sadistic bastard, said Naruto as he woke up after completing the ceremony. Naruto hoped that everything had worked out like it was supposed to, and that was 6 again. Naruto stood up and checked himself over in the mirror. He was definitely short again, well, shorter anyway. He checked his closets and saw no sign of his infamous orange jumpsuit, which he didn't purchase until he was in his 3rd year at the academy. Next he checked the calendar, and there circled in red was the note for him to start the academy that day. Well, the fox got it right after all, said Naruto to himself. Then he checked the clock. Shit, I'm going to be late for my first day at the academy. Naruto ran about his apartment getting dressed and packing a few cup ramen to eat for lunch along with a notebook and pencil. Naruto hurried through the streets as fast as his shorter legs would carry him. He realized several things on that run. First, that he had to completely retrain his body to access and use chakra. Second, he was really out of shape. And third, he needed new shoes. Naruto arrived a few minutes late. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to be late, said Naruto to the instructor, or rather junior instructor Iruka. Iruka glared at Naruto the same way that so many adults glared at him. Naruto couldn't remember exactly when Iruka stopped glaring at him and instead saw him and not the demon contained within. Hurry up and sit down. Naruto nodded and hurried to his seat. Per Kyuubi's instructions he sat the middle row. Part of the reason was to properly teach Naruto to gather information from others, in other words, to teach him to properly cheat. Naruto was singled out by Iruka several times to answer questions that even most Chunin wouldn't know. He answered the ones he could, but for the most part he had no idea. I can't remember Iruka-sensei being so mean before, said Naruto to the Kyuubi in his head. Don't worry, he'll change soon enough, said Kyuubi in response. Naruto now remembered why he hated the first year of academy. They never did anything. It was all theory and strategy. There was nothing about the actual job. They didn't learn to throw kunai or shuriken. They didn't learn anything about chakra. They didn't learn anything applicable other than strategy. Finally, class ended for the day and Naruto was only too happy to get out of there and start his other training. So, what should I do first? Asked Naruto to the fox. Find that freak guy, said Kyuubi trying to suppress a shudder. So Naruto set off to find him. He remembered that guy could usually be found in Training Area 18 with Rock Lee training against wooden stumps. That was exactly where Naruto found him, and not surprising, there was a young Rock Lee right beside him training his very hardest. At first he almost didn't recognize Lee without the bowl-cut hair, but his large eyebrow and freak eyelashes were there nonetheless. Excuse me, said Naruto cautiously approaching the field. He wasn't sure how Guy would react to Konoha's hated demon child. Guy stopped and looked to the source of the voice. What's this? The passion of youth has led another young disciple to my tender care. Naruto did everything he could to suppress the shudder that was trying to escape. Sir, I heard the Junin in the village saying that you and someone named Kakashi were rivals. They said that Kakashi was better at taijutsu than you, but he wouldn't teach anyone. So I thought that maybe you could teach me a little, said Naruto, playing off of Guy's one and only weakness, his rivalry with Kakashi. Who would say such things? I'll have you know that I am Konoha's green beast, the ultimate taijutsu master. Kakashi could never teach you as I could, said Guy strongly. So you'll teach me, said Naruto excitedly, knowing he had Guy trapped. Of course, you shall join me and my other apprentice in training. Our youthful passion shall shine like a beacon to all of Konoha, said Guy in his nice guy pose. Thank you so much, said Naruto, bowing gratefully. Now, punch this log 100 times with each arm, and if you can't do that you'll kick this log 100 times with each leg, and if you can't do that you'll run around this clearing 100 times, said Guy, patting the top of the log next to him. That put Guy in the middle and Naruto and Lee on each side of him. Naruto had a few choice words for Kyuubi but decided to restrain himself. It was few weeks later that Guy, Naruto and Lee all had a talk about their progress. Naruto was surprised by how intelligent and serious Guy sounded. Naruto and Lee, said Guy, I am very proud of the progress you have both made. I have now had a chance to evaluate your body types and physical capabilities. Lee, you are very lacking in chakra, and I doubt you will ever be able to use ninjutsu or genjutsu beyond genin level. So I will teach in a forbidden taijutsu style that allows you to fight harder, faster, longer, and utilize the chakra you do have to its fullest extent. However, I warn you now that this is dangerous. I will do whatever you say, Guy-sensei. I will learn this style as best as I can and make you proud of me. If this is the only way for me to become a ninja, then I will do it, said Lee, a bit too enthusiastically for Naruto's taste. Naruto, you have an enormous stamina and an even larger chakra capacity than any I have ever seen at your age. With the right training, your capacity will continue to grow exponentially. This means that I can train you for a taijutsu style that relies heavily on using lots of chakra. However, your body is small and you do not have a very long reach. For that reason you will have to move as fast as Yondaime Hokage was famous for. You will also have to have power to eliminate your opponent in only a few hits. This will require extreme dedication on your part. I'm not going to lie to you, it will be more intense training than Lee will have to go through, explained Lee. Is it Yondaime Hokage's taijutsu style? Asked Naruto. Indeed it is. Not many use the style because it drains so much chakra to use it. So even Sharingan users would struggle to use the style even if they can copy it, explained Guy. I'll do it, whatever it takes, said Naruto. Guy-sensei? Questioned Lee. Yes, Lee, said Guy. Sensei, is Naruto-kun's taijutsu stronger than what you will teach me? No, Lee, they are both equal. The style I am teaching you is easier to learn and use and is very, very powerful but dangerous to the user, hence the drawback of it. The style I will teach Naruto is much harder to learn and even more difficult to use it effectively. However, for his size and build it is absolutely perfect for him just as yours is perfect for you. Thank you Guy Sensei, said Lee hugging his father figure. Guy just smiled. So, before we get back to work we need to give you 2 weights, said Guy dropping a bag on the ground in front of them. Lee, your style will require lots of leg strength and speed. So, you will only need weights on your legs to start with. Naruto, your style will require lots of speed from all areas as well as strength. You will be wearing weights on your arms and legs as well as a weighted belt. You must never take these weights off unless it is to increase the weight or you are fighting to protect a precious person. Lee and Naruto both nodded seriously before putting on the weights. Now, let's get started. Lee, I want 1,000 kicks with each leg on the stump. Naruto, Guy paused to take out an elastic rope with a ball in the middle. Guy tied the rope to a tree branch so that the ball was at chest level. He then tied the other end of the rope to a kunai which he then buried underground drawing the rope tight. Naruto, you will hit this ball 250 times with each arm and each leg. Every time you hit the ball it will fly back at you so you must move out of its path quickly. You must always circle around the ball as you go. I'll show you once and then you can do the rest on your own. Guy then hit the ball hard causing it to go back a few inches before shoot toward him quickly almost 2 feet. Naruto for the life of him could not figure out the physics of it but rather than question the how and why it did that he just got on with the exercise. Naruto hit the ball once and just about broke his hand. It was hard but soft at the same time, like taut muscles would be. He barely moved the ball in the slightest back but it still shot forward at him hitting him in the chest knocking the wind right out of him. In the back of his mind he could hear the Kyuubi laughing at him. This was going to be a long training session. Soon weeks turned into months turned into 2 years. In that time Naruto and Lee had become good friends. They were both orphans and both wanted nothing more than to become great shinobi. Lee wanted to prove his ninja way, to become the greatest taijutsu master ever and prove that a person could become a ninja using only taijutsu. Naruto still sought acknowledgement and to become Hokage. And as promised, Naruto took every opportunity he could to embarrass the Uchiha bastard while in classes. Naruto scored average on all of his tests but anytime he faced the Uchiha bastard in something he went out of his way to humiliate the bastard and knock him down a few pegs even if he was still the top of the class for grades. Naruto was one of the smart ones in the class. He could definitely be considered a genius and yet he only scored average on the tests. He found out that Shino did the exact same thing even though he was a genius. Shikamaru was a genius as well but he was just lazy. Hinata, Ino, and Sakura all had to struggle very hard in the class. Ino and Sakura both excelled in the book work but suffered horribly in the physical work, although Ino was slightly better than Sakura. Hinata seemed to struggle all the way around but for a simple lack of confidence. Shoji was simply an average student. He wasn't a genius but he wasn't stupid either. The same could be said for Kiba as well. Naruto's relationship with Guy was strictly business although Guy would sometimes celebrate one of Naruto's training triumphs by treating him to ramen. It was different than Guy and Lee's relationship which was more like father and son. Naruto and Iruka's relationship though seemed to improve quite a bit too where Iruka looked to Naruto as a little brother and Naruto looked to him as a bit of an older brother. Still, the few connections that Naruto had made meant the world to him. It even helped to clean up the sewer-like home of Kyuubi. Well done Kit, I have been most impressed with your improvement these last few years. You've listened well to my instructions and if you keep this up you will make a worthy container yet. Now, I have a most difficult task for you. You need to find a weapon. Follow that girl with the rolls on her head to her home. She can probably help you out, ordered Kyuubi simply when the day was coming to an end. As ordered, Naruto followed Tenten home. As fate would have it she lived above a weapon shop that her parents owned. Naruto entered the shop cautiously. He knew that he wasn't welcomed in most shops, but he had to hope that because he was Tenten's classmate they would at least allow him to buy a few things. "Welcome to the Ikuguchi weaponsmith," said a thin bearded maid wearing a heavy black apron. "Excuse me, sir," said Naruto politely. "I'm go to the academy with Tenten and she seems to really know weapons. I wanted to ask her about a weapon for me." "You're Uzumaki Naruto, aren't you?" asked the smithy. "Yes, sir," said Naruto, not daring to meet his eyes. "Well, do you know what kind of weapon you'd like?" "No idea, sir. Someone told me that weapons often reflect our personalities. I was hoping to find such a weapon here," said Naruto with a bit of enthusiasm now that he didn't think he was going to be thrown out of the shop. "I see. Well, whoever told you that is quite right," said the smithy. "Weapons are a very personal thing. My own daughter Tenten is amazing with any kind of throwing weapon. But she just loves the standard shuriken. I've been trying to create an ultra-light, ultra-durable shuriken for her to use. The problem is that they get lost easily and they are quite expensive to make. Have you tried getting her to use a larger shuriken? Like taking 4 kunai and putting them together but closer together on the blades. Easy to throw and hard to lose," suggested Naruto boldly. "That's not a bad idea," said the smith. "I'll try that and see what Tenten thinks." "Great," said Naruto, happy he could be of help. "Now, let's see about you," said the smith. "Definitely not sword. You're not refined enough for a sword. Not a mace either. You're not that barbaric and clumsy. Tell me, do you have a taijutsu style?" "Yes, sir. Guy-sensei has been teaching me for a few years now," said Naruto. "I see. That's good, although Guy doesn't care for weapons very much unless you're talking about chakra nunchaka. Do you fight close range or long range?" "Short range," answered Naruto. "Are your moves meant to be power, fast, or combination of both?" "Both, sir," said Naruto. Difficult," said the shopkeeper. "Do you use a lot of chakra?" "Yes, sir," said Naruto. That just might work," said the shopkeeper as he went into the back room and returned with a small wooden box which he set on the counter in front of Naruto. "Go on, have a look and tell me what you think." Naruto opened the box carefully. Inside were 2 leather gloves that would go at least halfway up his forearm. The gloves seemed to be framed with some kind of metal that bent freely at each joint, though he could not see any hinges. Each knuckle had a small metal disc covering it. "What kind of gloves are these?" "Those are gloves that used to be used by the Hyuga clan Anbu members," explained the smithy, "though none have used them in 20 or 30 years. No one knows how to use them anymore. If you ask me, the Hyugas have gotten rather pig-headed and stubborn. They think they are invincible and don't require the use of weapons. I say they are wasting their potential. So what do? They help to focus chakra in the hands," explained the old man. "If you can master them, you can even learn to create chakra spikes on the knuckles. Though the level of chakra control is almost impossible to anyone but a Hyuga, I doubt you'd be able to get that far with them. Still, from what you've told me about your fighting style, they would pack an extra bit of power in every hit you land. Just be careful of your chakra levels." Naruto nodded. "How much, sir?" 300,000 Ryu, said the smithy, causing Naruto's face to face. "I'm sorry to have wasted your time, sir, but I can't afford that," said Naruto, checking his froggy wallet. "I wouldn't expect you could. Most can't unless they are of the Hyuga clan," said the smithy. "However, I could use a bit of help around the smith if you want to work for them." Naruto's eyes shot through with hope as he looked at the man. "You mean it? I must be getting soft in my old age," said the old man. "You work for me for the next year and they are yours. When do I start? And how long each day?" "Just 2 hours a day after the academy lets out. Who knows, maybe I can teach you a thing or two about throwing weapons while you're here," said the old man. "You'll start tomorrow and you can call me Ikuguchi-san." "Thank you so much, sir. You won't regret this. I promise too that I will stay out of your customers' sight too so that it doesn't hurt your business," said Naruto. Ikuguchi-san gave Naruto an odd look. Naruto could tell that he-man was searching to see if Naruto knew he was a vessel. "What makes you say something like that? Most villagers don't like and call me names. I don't want you to lose business if your customers see that I'm working here," explained Naruto. "Though, I can't say as why the villagers don't like me, they just don't." Ikuguchi nodded his acceptance of Naruto's story. Great then, I'll see you tomorrow, said Ikuguchi waving goodbye to Naruto as he left the shop. Naruto barely heard the Ikuguchi's wife rush into the room after he was out the door and start to berate her husband for doing that. Naruto promised himself then that he wouldn't let the old smithy down. Naruto arrived the next day as promised at the appointed time. Welcome back Naruto, said Ikuguchi. Thank you again sir, said Naruto, what do you want me to do? Well, until you gain a bit more understanding of smithing weapons, I want you to work the bellows and shovel coal to keep the furnace hot. It will be really hard work for you but you'll learn a lot, explained the old smithy. Naruto nodded and got straight to work. When Ikuguchi said it would be tough work he wasn't kidding. Even still, Naruto gave the man his absolute best work every day. As a result Naruto's muscle had developed quite rapidly as a result of the constant lifting and the weights from Guy's training. Naruto still received glares from the smith's wife whenever she entered the shop but even those were beginning to wane as she saw how hard Naruto worked every day. He never saw hide nor hair of Tenten beyond following her home at a safe distance so the villagers didn't pass any undue hate onto her and her family from associating with him. It was few weeks later that Naruto learned his next bit about weaponry. Alright Naruto, take a break, I want to teach you something. Naruto nodded and wiped the sweat from his brow as he went to the smithy's side. Naruto, forging weapons is not easy work. Part of it requires extremely good chakra control in our hands and arms. Why you ask? Because when we forge the weapons for shinobi they often have special requests with regards to the design. Most of your Junin level shinobi want weapons that can focus and augment their chakra for special uses. Hitaki Kakashi once used a weapon known as a fang. It was designed so that by focusing chakra into the blade it made the blade stronger and sharper. Not an easy task to accomplish without really good control. But to forge such a weapon requires absolutely perfect control, explained the smithy. Naruto nodded interestedly. He was in fact really interested in this. He had never gone past Genin so he'd rarely seen any special weapons used by Junin shinobi. So, before I can start letting you help me forge the weapons you need work on your control, said Ikuguchi calmly. How do I do that? Asked Naruto. Any time you are not pumping the bellows or shoveling coal to heat the furnace you are to balance a kunai on your finger using your chakra. Now, I'll warn you now, I am giving you one of my best kunai to train with. It is weighted to be heavier but the metal is specialized to be sharper so if you don't use just the right amount of chakra you'll cut your finger off. Also, this kunai had better not ever touch the floor of this place, I don't want the edge damaged because you weren't paying attention. When you've gotten the hang of balancing one kunai we'll add another until you can balance one kunai on every finger at the same time, got it? Naruto swallowed nervously before nodding. He already knew he was going to lose at least one finger trying to learn this. What happens if it does hit the floor? You leave here and not come back, said Ikuguchi in dead seriousness. Weapons are not toys, they are meant to be respected and cared for. Dropping a weapon shows a lack of respect for me, my trade, and the weapons. Naruto understood his words perfectly and nodded his understanding. This was something he was going to learn and learn fast. Just as Naruto predicted he cut off at least one finger learning the exercise in the first place but the kunai never hit the floor even he was bleeding. Thanks to Kyuubi however, Naruto just put the finger back where it was supposed to be and Kyuubi healed it right away without the old man ever having to know. It took Naruto nearly a month to learn to properly balance one kunai on his fingertip. It was 6 months after that before he could balance 10 kunai on all 10 digits at the same time. You've done well Naruto, said Ikuguchi as Naruto showed him his balancing act. It took me almost 2 years to be able to do that, but then I was already much older when I first started to learn to do that. You kids learn so fast as it is. Tenten mastered that trick in about 3 weeks, the little scamp. Really? Asked Naruto, she must have perfect control. She does, but she hasn't really learned any other techniques. She says she wants to be strong like Tsunade Hime but she never trains anything but her weapons. Oh well, once she becomes a genin she'll understand much better, said Ikuguchi with a small smile at Naruto. You should take to see the Chunin exams then the next time they come to the village. She would be able to see some of the other shinobi and how they train, said Naruto. I only went once and I had to sneak in, but you learned so much from watching them. Ikuguchi chuckled. I just might do that. Now, let's get back to work. Maybe next week I'll teach more about making weapons. In the meantime, I want you to continue practicing your chakra control. Naruto nodded vigorously, setting back to work. It was 2 weeks later Ikuguchi started to show Naruto how to scan different metals for impurities using his new chakra control, which he picked up quickly enough. Then he learned about folding the metal to strengthen the blade, and finally he learned how make the weapons capable of focusing chakra using different seals folded into the metal and then altering them carefully using his own chakra. Naruto then learned about all the different kinds of weapons that had been made and what was popular at the time. So Naruto, you've been with me for 11 months now, said Ikuguchi. Did you learn anything? So much, said Naruto excitedly as he started rattling off everything that he'd learned from the smith. Outstanding, said Ikuguchi when Naruto finished his recitation. You've learned everything I hoped you would. Now, for your final challenge from me. I want you to create a weapon for me. Something original and new that I've never forged before. Put your heart into it and create a masterpiece for me. You do that and the glove is yours and your time with me is done. Really? Asked Naruto excitedly. Does that mean I can use the good metal? Indeed it does. I trust you now, boy, so get to work, said Ikuguchi. For the next month and a half Naruto meticulously crafted his masterpiece. A salute to Kyuubi that was to be aptly named, Kyuubi's tail. He made a blade unlike any that had been seen in centuries. The blade was forged in 10 different segments with whip-like inner structure, allowing the blade to be both a solid blade and a whip at the same time. The chakra seals that Naruto used were simply ingenious. He spent weeks poring over sealing texts trying to find just the right seals to place on the blade pieces to make them do what he wanted. He mixed a bit of his chakra along with Kyuubi's chakra in the final sealing process, giving the blade a red-orange color. It was very powerful at the end of the process. Sadly though, Naruto knew he would never have the fines or skill to wield such an amazing blade. Finally, Naruto presented the finished product to Ikuguchi. Well, I can't say as I've ever seen a sword design quite like this before, said Ikuguchi appreciatively. You get points for originality, now show me what it can do. Naruto took the blade in hand and channeled a bit of his chakra into which turned crimson the instant it came in contact with the blade. Naruto swung the blade once, showing its smooth slice. He then jutted the blade forward hard, causing it to separate at each segment, turning to a bladed whip which he swung about clumsily, and yet it looked amazing to watch at the same time. Finally the whip came back together solid as a single piece, or rather what looked like a single piece. Naruto looked to Ikuguchi to see a slight look of fear in his eyes. How is it possible to create such a blade? Where did that other chakra come from? I don't know. I've always had a second chakra that was kind of red-orange in color. I thought it would look cool in a blade. It kind of reminded me of the way Kyuubi looks in the history books, you know. That's why I named the sword, Kyuubi's tail. Fitting, huh? Ikuguchi nodded numbly. Naruto had just told him that he had a second chakra source that he could always use for as long as he could remember. He'd been able to use Kyuubi's chakra and not know what exactly it was. More than that, he'd drawn a parallel between himself and Kyuubi, and yet the boy had no idea what was sealed inside him, or so he thought. Naruto, I will be presenting this blade to the Hokage. None of my apprentices have ever forged such a fine, high-quality blade, said Ikuguchi, now beaming with pride after having gotten over his shock and awe. Really? Do you think he'll like it? Asked Naruto excitedly, but secretly worried he'd overdone it by a long shot. I think he will be really impressed that such a genius has been overlooked for so long, said Ikuguchi. I don't want to be a genius. Genius are stuck-up snobs who always think they know better than everyone else. I might be as smart as a genius, but I am not one of those bastards, said Naruto strongly, causing Ikuguchi to chuckle. Indeed, you're right, Naruto, said Ikuguchi. Genius are a bit stuck up. So we'll just say you are gifted. That will work, said Naruto, clearly appeased by the change in wording. Ikuguchi laughed again at his extremely gifted 9-year-old apprentice. Only a shinobi would be able to learn the things Naruto has and actually be able to do that which he's learned. No normal citizen could ever hope to compete with a shinobi when it came to learning to do such a physically and mentally intensive job. Break. Ikuguchi sat patiently waiting outside of the Hokage's office holding onto one of the most finely crafted blades that came from his shop. The blade was wrapped in red silk. Ikuguchi could almost feel the blade pulsating with energy in his hands. The Hokage will see you now, Ikuguchi-san, said the secretary. Ikuguchi bowed and entered the Hokage's office. Toya, so nice to see you again, said old man Sarutobi. Saru, my old friend, said Ikuguchi, how are you? Very well, thank you. I must say, I am surprised that you have come to see me. You have not presented a weapon to me in such a long time. I was beginning to think you'd lost your touch. Not at all, just no reason to make anything exceptional. I'm overstocked on exceptional at the moment, so the regular variety weapons have kept me busy, said Ikuguchi. I see, so what do you have for me today? Asked Sarutobi. Ikuguchi set the blade on the desk and uncovered the handle for the Hokage to examine it himself. Sarutobi took the weapon in hand and removed it from the silk wrappings to examine it closer. He could indeed feel the overwhelming chakra flowing through the blade. My word, whispered Sarutobi, how did you do this? I didn't, my most recent apprentice did, said Ikuguchi. Who? Asked Sarutobi, most interested. He was truthfully hoping he could convince whoever made the blade to make more weapons of this quality. Uzumaki Naruto, said Ikuguchi. Sarutobi nearly dropped the blade as he suddenly recognized the chakra flowing from the blade. He did. But how? His teachers all say he is only average in his studies. For that matter, when did he start an apprenticeship with you? I check up on the boy regularly and he's never made mention of him apprenticing for you. He didn't know he was apprenticing to me. He thought it was just an after-school job to help him pay for a pair of chakra gloves he wanted to buy, explained Ikuguchi. So that was the after-school job he mentioned, said Sarutobi before he asked, a bit young to start with that kind of work though, don't you think? At first it was just a job, but then I saw how much he grew and how much his strength increased that I knew he'd be capable, and I was right, said Ikuguchi. But what about this chakra? How did he? He said that he's always had two different chakras. He thought it would look cool if he used his other chakra to color it. He said he thought it looked like the pictures of Kyuubi from the history books. The blade is named Kyuubi's tail. Tail? Why tail? This only looks like a sword to me, said Sarutobi, examining it again. Allow me to show you, said Ikuguchi, taking the blade back and then showing the Sarutobi the whip-like feature of it. It truly is Kyuubi's tail, isn't it? Asked Sarutobi. It may be, but I know that Naruto just used his imagination in creating, said Ikuguchi. I know he isn't Kyuubi. Maybe he's had dreams of Kyuubi, perhaps his very first memory from when Yondaime sealed the beast within him. Perhaps, but that doesn't explain how the boy can access the Kyuubi's chakra, said Sarutobi as he scratched his chin. Anyway, I still wanted to show you the blade and ask for your appraisal of its quality, said Ikuguchi. I would say around 3 or 4, said Sarutobi. 100,000, asked Ikuguchi. Million, said Sarutobi, this place is nearly priceless. You will ever see a blade anywhere imbued with demon chakra such as this one. It is one of a kind. Ikuguchi was speechless. He truly did not know how to react. However, we really should have the blade tested by a blade master, said Sarutobi before he pushed the intercom button. Send for Hayate, please. Right away, Hokage-sama, came the secretary's voice back. Please sit and wait, said Sarutobi, motioning to the chair. It was only a minute later that Hayate appeared, cough and all. You called for me, Hokage-sama, said Hayate, kneeling properly. I have asked you here to test a blade for me, said Sarutobi, motioning to the sword on his desk. As you wish, said Hayate, standing and taking the blade in hand. Perfectly balanced, lightweight yet very durable, perfect alignment, listed off Hayate as he inspected the blade. Experiment with it if you would, requested Sarutobi. Hayate took a few swings of the blade and was very surprised when the blade became a whip. Once he found that he experimented even more, trying to understand the exact way in which it functioned. Sarutobi and Ikuguchi could both see that Hayate did not wish to relinquish the blade that was now in his hands. Very good, no, Asked Ikuguchi. It is it your work? Asked Hayate. A recently finished apprenticeship, said Ikuguchi. Maybe you have heard of the boy, Uzumaki Naruto. The demon, said Hayate, quickly setting the blade down and stepping away from it. Naruto is not a demon, he is a boy who is extremely gifted, said Ikuguchi unhappily. That blade is probably one of the finest in the village. But, if people hear that Naruto forged it, no one will want to touch it. But the blade must be evil, said Hayate. I could feel the demon chakra on it. So what? Did you feel evil using it? Asked Sarutobi. Well, no, but did you feel stronger using it? Asked Sarutobi. Well, yes, but so would you say the demon chakra enhances your strength but doesn't affect the way you think? Asked Sarutobi. I suppose, but good. Then would you like to purchase this fine blade? Asked Ikuguchi, playing off of Sarutobi's questioning. I would, but good. The blade is yours, we'll work out a payment plan later. I am most interested to hear how well this blade fares under you excellent hands, said Ikuguchi. Yes, I want you take the next week off to train with that blade and see what it is truly capable of. I don't want you going on a mission for the next month without it in your possession, ordered Sarutobi, and don't worry about paying for it. The village will buy and dispatch the blade for your usage. However, I do want a report after you've finished training with it and after your month of missions with it, reporting on its quality and any abilities you have uncovered in using it. Yes, Hokage-sama, said Hayate, knowing there was no room for argument. And if you have any questions, feel free to contact the maker. I imagine you will find him spending most of his time in the training fields getting used to his new chakra gloves with Meta Guy's instruction, said Sarutobi with a smile, signaling the end of the meeting. I'll be sure to let you know if Naruto makes any other weapons in my shop, said Ikuguchi as he also left the Hokage's office. You're becoming very interesting, Uzumaki Naruto, said Sarutobi as he looked out of his office window surveying the village below. Very interesting indeed. Break. Naruto, I am pleased to see that you have increased your training time back to where it was a year ago, said Guy happily. Sorry, sensei, there was something I had to do, said Naruto, and now I've got these. Naruto then held up the chakra gloves for Guy to examine. Chakra gloves, said Guy, interesting choice of weapons, Naruto. If you are able to learn to use them, then they will complement your taijutsu style very nicely. Oh yeah, I almost forgot, said Naruto, digging into the bag he brought with him. I found this scroll in a small shop and thought it might be useful for Lee and I. Guy smiled. Naruto, the flames and passion of youth are strong and to care so much for your friend and teacher. Guy took the scroll and opened it and began reading. Naruto, where did you find this? This was supposed to be a lost technique. Just some old junk shop. The lady pretty much threw it at me to get me out of the shop though, he said, acting a bit sad. Naruto, this scroll holds the gravity seal technique meant for intense physical training. With this technique you will never again need to change your weights, only the seal, said Guy. I have never been so proud in my life. Oh, okay, said Naruto, while in his head he was chided Kyubi for not telling him how rare the technique was when he wrote the scroll out the night before. Remove your weights, my students, for with this you shall receive the greatest training ever, said Guy. So how does it work? Asked Naruto. It is a genjutsu that make your muscles strain as though the gravity was heavier than it actually is. It makes you stronger faster than regular weight because it affects every muscle but your heart and lungs, explained Guy. This is going to be so great, shouted Lee before jumping up and dancing about. Thankfully he didn't have the green spandex suit yet, and he wouldn't get one until he became an official genin of the Leaf Village. This is going to suck, said Naruto under his breath as he prepared for the worst. Finally, I can take the damn genin exam, said Naruto to himself as he went to the academy. He was 13, the normal age for graduating from the academy, and now he just had get past this stupid test. Welcome class, said Iruka, today we will be having the genin exams. Good luck to all of you. Please come into the next room when your name is called. Naruto put his head down on the desk to wait for his turn. This is boring just sitting here, complained Kiba. So, send Akamaru to piss on Uchiha bastard's leg, said Naruto with an evil smirk. Good idea, said Kiba before looking at his dog. So what do you think? Bark, replied Akamaru, which Kiba seemed to understand. But it'll be funny, said Kiba. Bark bark, replied Akamaru. Fine, you're right, we should just concentrate on the exam, said Kiba. Hey Shino, I'll pay you a 100 ryu to have you send some of your bugs up Sasuke's pant to itch him during his test, said Naruto to his bug fetish friend. They say no, said Shino simply. Che, complained Naruto, putting his head back on the desk to wait his turn. Naruto, what do you have against Sasuke anyway? Asked Choji between bites of chips. He lusts for power because of what his brother did, and now he won't hesitate to do anything to get the power he's after. That includes betraying the village and or killing one of us, said Naruto. I may not be the sharpest kunai in the pouch, but I can read people like Shikamaru can read a shogi board. You really think that Sasuke would do something like that? Asked Choji. Without a doubt, said Naruto. The bugs say Naruto is right, said Shino before going silent again. I hope I don't end up on his team, said Kiba. If I do, I might just accidentally kill him on our first serious mission, said Naruto coldly. You're probably the only person in class that could, said Choji. Nah, Shino could take him, said Naruto. So how come neither of you are Rookie of the Year? Asked Choji. Because we're smarter than Sasuke. We know that if we just do average on our scores, we'll end up on a more well-balanced team. Best in class and worst in class always get paired together, creating a really bad imbalance in team strength. The top in class is always expected to make up for the worst student's shortcomings, said Naruto. On the other, just because someone is bad in class does not mean that they aren't good shinobi. Some people just can't take tests but are excellent when using jutsu, maybe even better than the top student. You really think so? Asked Choji. Yep, said Naruto just before his name was called in to do the exam. Naruto was sent to a different class after he finished the test to wait on the other students that passed the exam. Choji, Shikamaru, Shino, and Kiba soon joined him along with another 20-some students, including the Uchiha bastard. Good job, graduates, said Iruka after he entered the room. Be back here tomorrow morning to receive your team assignment. After everyone left, Naruto dragged Iruka to eat ramen, again. I don't know how you can eat that stuff every day and still get stronger. It has got to be unhealthy, said Iruka. Nah, I have a special metabolism that lets me eat whatever I want, said Naruto calmly. Naruto, the Hokage, he asked me to talk to you about something important, said Iruka. Naruto could hear the hesitation in his voice. He had a feeling he knew what it was about. If it's about my resident, then you don't need to tell me, I already know. Iruka just spit out the noodles in mouth before looking at Naruto in shock. How did you find out? Said Naruto thinking, I met him and he told me what happened and then I told he had to start paying rent. So for a long time now I've been using my chakra, and if I need it I can use his too, though he can be a bit stingy. You met him, and you're still alive. Yay, it's no big deal. Sure, he's 7,000 years old, but once you get to know him he's gentle as a, said Naruto, dripping with sarcasm that was not lost on the instructor. How is he really? Cranky, loud, obnoxious, and really pushy. He's got this idea in his head that I should be a worthy container, so he's constantly going off at the mouth about training more. In a sense, it is kind of good to have him yelling at me to train all the time because I'm always getting stronger, but it does get downright annoying at times, explained Naruto honestly. How long have you known? Since I was 6, some idiot villager hit me in the head with a beer bottle and left me for dead. That was the first time I met the fox. He healed me and called me a weak vessel that was unworthy of his greatness. Well, you know me. I didn't take that very well. I don't know if you notice, but my pranks suddenly stopped around that time. I was expending all that extra energy torturing the fox any way I could. Usually just taunting him or singing children's songs in my head. He's sworn to me that if he ever meets Barney, that he tear him limb from limb and use his entrails as floss. I can't say as I disagree with him on that one, but it still gets dead annoying. So, we've reached a compromise. I train to become a worthy container and he gives up his chakra when I ask for, explained Naruto as he continued to eat his ramen. Why haven't you talked to the Hokage about this? Why would I? He never told me about it in the first place, and yet he must have known. He may have always been kind to me and treated me fairly when most other wouldn't, but he still lied or rather kept secrets about me from me. Why can't I keep some of my own secrets about me from him? Asked Naruto a bit hotly. Iruka just nodded. That is a fair point, Naruto. And you're certain the fox will not be escaping? Naruto gave Iruka a dirty look. What do you take me for, a simpleton? That was first thing I looked into when I learned about the fox. I found out every last detail about the seals Yondaime used to seal that bastard in to make sure he would never get. I might not have had a choice in having the bastard put in there, but now that he's there, he sure as hell isn't getting out. Iruka smiled fondly at Naruto. I still don't know why didn't apply yourself in classes. You could have been Rookie of the Year. So could have Shino, but he and I both understand that we have better odds of ending up on a more well-balanced team by being average even if we are gifted, said Naruto as he motioned to the cook for another bowl. Iruka smiled and continued his ramen. That night did not get as stressful as it could have been. Iruka saw Naruto home before he went to meet with the Hokage as promised. So Iruka, tell me, how did Naruto take the news? He already knew, said Iruka to the Hokage's surprise. Iruka then launched into the explanation that Naruto gave him. In the end the Hokage was chuckling, amazing. I know, I couldn't believe how candid he was in talking about it, said Iruka. Did you have any reason to doubt his story? Asked Sarutobi. No, I've known Naruto for a long time now. I can tell when he's lying or withholding information, said Iruka confidently. I see. It would have been so easy for him to feign ignorance of the fox with the law, even more so as it never came up in conversation beyond history lessons, said Sarutobi. Anyway, it is getting late, sir, and I still have to arrange the teams, said Iruka politely excusing himself. Naruto, you're turning out more and more interesting every day, said the Hokage as he puffed on his pipe. Break. Naruto woke up early the next day as usual to meet with Guy and Lee for their morning workout. A workout that Neji and Tenten never knew about nor cared to take part in. They were both satisfied with the way things were and saw no reason to change, besides, as Neji was often quoted, I am fated to this path, or some such bullshit. The morning routine ended when Lee and Guy had to go meet their team for their daily mission. Naruto though went home for a quick shower before he had to report to the academy for team assignments. Naruto walked into the class just as it was about to begin, just as it always did. Congratulations again to all of you who passed. However, now the real work begins in your journey towards becoming Chunin, said Iruka proudly. So, here are the teams. Team 7, Hyuga Hinata, Uzumaki Naruto and Uchiha Sasuke, said Iruka. Naruto shot up to his, throwing his chair back away from him. Change the teams, he ordered. I'm sorry Naruto, but the teams were approved by the Hokage, said Iruka. If you put me on the same team as the Uchiha bastard, I will no doubt kill him, and then there will be no Uchiha left in Konoha, and then when I kill Itachi, there will be no Uchiha anywhere. The clan will end and the Sharingan will be lost forever, said Naruto adamantly. Naruto, teams are final as approved by the Hokage. You'll just have to work out your differences, said Iruka before continuing on with the team listings. Naruto picked up his discard chair and threw it with such force at the blackboard that the feet actually went through the board before Naruto stormed out of the classroom, headed straight for the Hokage's office. Let me see the old man, Naruto said to the secretary, who gave him a cold look in return. You have to come back later. The Hokage is in a meeting and is not to be disturbed, especially by one like you, said the secretary. Naruto just growled before ignoring her and the Anbu outside the office and stormed inside. In the office, the Hokage was sitting with Hyuga Hiyashi, obviously deep in discussion. Naruto, what can I do for you? Asked the Hokage, noting the red slit eyes Naruto was sporting at the moment. It either meant Naruto was pissed or the Kyuubi was in charge. Change the damn teams, said Naruto simply. Naruto, the teams are chosen based the ability to balance its members out, said Sarutobi. Change the damn teams now, said Naruto, getting angrier than before. Sarutobi took a file out of his desk to check the team assignments. Ah, I see, said Sarutobi, Naruto, please sit for a moment and calm down. Let me explain my reasoning. Naruto never had reason to doubt the old man in the past, so he sat to listen. Naruto, have you met Hyuga Hiashi? Asked Sarutobi politely. No, sir, but I have heard of you, said Naruto politely, inclining his head to the man. Naruto could tell both men were slightly unnerved to see the red Kyuubi eyes staring them both down. Naruto, are you aware that Hyuga Hinata has had several attempts on her life from other villages trying to acquire the Byakugan eyes? Asked Sarutobi. Yes, sir, said Naruto. Hinata was dead last in the class this year, not because she isn't capable but because she lacks confidence. Every time someone attempts to kidnap her or take her eyes, she slips a bit more. Now you are simply overflowing with confidence, something that could help her greatly, explained Sarutobi. Hinata is not the problem, that Uchiha bastard is the problem, said Naruto, still fuming. I understand that, but let me finish, said Sarutobi calmly, trying to pacify Naruto. The last place student and first place student are always paired together to balance them out. But this time, it is also to provide Hinata-san with extra protection. Uchiha is not even that good, Shino is by far better than Sasuke, and so am I for that matter, protested Naruto. I know, but there is still more to it. Sasuke is constantly looking for a fight to improve his ability. He is therefore more like to fight any attackers than protect her. To an extent we need that. We need to keep the Uchiha occupied with challenges, explained Sarutobi. Something was finally starting to make a bit of sense to Naruto. Uchiha Sasuke is a flight risk, said Sarutobi finally. He is so consumed by his desire for power that he would do anything to get his hands on it. Not only that, but when Itachi killed off the clan, he did something to Sasuke's mind which have been unable to repair. Top that off with the fact that our spies have recently learned that someone has taken an interest in Sasuke. Orochimaru, said Naruto coolly. Yes, how did you know? Asked Sarutobi. It's not that hard to figure out. Orochimaru abandoned the village after he was passed over for Hokage, swearing he'd have his revenge. Orochimaru's greatest ambition is to learn every jutsu in the world. He can do that with the Sharingan eyes. And if I remember correct, he abandoned the village after you caught him doing human experimentation in the pursuit of finding an immortality technique, which is impossible as even demons aren't immortal, even if they'd like to think so. So that leaves a mind-switching jutsu which wouldn't be that hard to develop into a permanent technique if it was based of the Yamanaka's Haijutsu. Very good, Naruto, said Sarutobi, you even thought of some angle I had not considered. So basically, you want me to back up the Uchiha if there are any more attempts to take Hinata, and more than that, you want me there to prevent the Uchiha bastard from running, said Naruto calmly, his red eyes faded some time ago. Exactly, said Sarutobi. And if he does try to run? Asked Naruto. Then he will have to be eliminated, said Sarutobi, though we would like to recover the Sharingan eyes if possible. Your Junin-sensei has already been briefed on the situation, so don't be too surprised if at some point your sensei ignores you to train Sasuke, if for nothing else than to appease the boy and keep him in the village. I have just one request then, said Naruto. Under no circumstances is the Uchiha to be taught any assassination techniques like the Rasengan or Kakashi-san's Chidori. If he is a flight risk, then the last thing we need is for him to know such techniques, and make sure the Junin instructor is aware of that, because so help if he is taught such a technique, I will Kyuubi out of his cage just to kill that Junin. With that, Naruto stood and left behind a stunned Hokage and Hyuga head. Once Naruto was out of the room, the door closed to reveal one Hatake Kakashi standing behind the door. I hope you were listening very closely to what that boy just told us, Kakashi-san, said Sarutobi. I don't care how he knows about those techniques, but so help if you put him such a position where he would even consider unleashing Kyuubi, that demon will be the least of your worries next to me. Kakashi was actually paying close attention to the warning despite his itch to read his favorite novel. Hyuga-sama, do you have any doubts now that your daughter will be safe with her selected team? Asked Sarutobi. I actually feel safer with her being teamed with that boy, Naruto, than I do with her being teamed with Kakashi or the Uchiha bastard, said Hiashi coolly. Naruto is the type that he would die to protect those important to him, said Sarutobi. You should feel honored that he still feels this village is very important to him. And what about the inevitable confrontation between him and the Uchiha? Asked Kakashi. Would Naruto really kill him? I just gave Naruto an order not to kill him but to retrieve the Sharingan. If that boy ever tries to betray the village, I have no doubt that Naruto will bring him back alive. However, I doubt that the Uchiha will ever be able to be shinobi again afterwards, said Sarutobi. I would agree with your appraisal, said Hiashi. I would highly suggest you be very mindful of that boy's request with regards to training the Uchiha. I still say that one of those girls would have been better for the Uchiha's temperament, said Kakashi. I might have agreed with you once upon a time, but the situation is how it is for a reason, said Sarutobi. Now, you will go and collect your team. I would suggest you forget about that book of yours because I get the feeling that Naruto will not react too kindly to you being late. Kakashi shrugged and strolled out of the room. Naruto will be most interesting to watch over the next few years, said Hiashi. Most interesting indeed, agreed Sarutobi. Break. Naruto left that office with his mind reeling with new questions for all the answers he just received. So many things from the first timeline were falling into place. So many of the questions that had been left unanswered when he came back were now all filled in. Kakashi didn't just ignore him in favor of the Uchiha bastard, he was ordered to in the hopes of preventing the Uchiha from becoming a missing nin. But then did Sarutobi know that Naruto would have been able to recover Sasuke that first time too, or was there something else involved? Naruto was giving himself a severe migraine trying to sort through all the information, so instead he just decided to play things by ear at this point. Naruto returned to the classroom where only Hinata and Sasuke were left waiting. The chair was still stuck in the wall. Sasuke gave him the evil eye upon entering and Hinata just about ducked under desk in fright. Naruto could already tell this was going to be a long couple of months until the Chunin exams. Naruto took a seat as far away from the Uchiha bastard as possible when ended up with him sitting next to Hinata. Naruto could hear her heart beating rapidly just sitting next to her. Hinata, calm down, said Naruto in a calm soothing voice, just because hate that bastard down there doesn't mean I don't like you. Hinata's heart fluttered for a moment but calmed down noticeably afterward. Better, said Naruto with a friendly smile that made Hinata just about melt in her seat. You know, I saw your father in the Hokage's office. Hinata looked panicked. Don't worry, he was just worried that you team might hold you back, said Naruto with a minor lie. I know he acts tough on the outside but he really does care about you. Hinata couldn't believe what she was hearing from Naruto. It had to be a lie, but then Naruto would never lie, it wasn't his nindo. Anyway, he was more concerned about that Uchiha bastard endangering your life, said Naruto a bit louder than necessary for Hinata to hear just to torment Sasuke. Naruto winked at Hinata in the hopes that she would play along. Tusen has always said that the Uchiha were more dangerous to their teammates than to the enemy, said Hinata stuttering slightly. That was actually true, though she didn't really understand what that comment was about. He's right, said Naruto with a smirk, you have to watch yourself around them Uchiha or they'll stick a knife in your back. Just look at what Sasuke's brother did. He was well respected in the village, a bright star among shinobi, and then he kills his very best friend, an Uchiha, to upgrade the Sharingan eyes to their ultimate level, and then he goes and kills his entire clan, save for his weak little brother. Hinata was in shock, she never knew that information. No one had ever told her. Is that true, Naruto-kun? She asked timidly. Naruto looked at Hinata seriously for a minute before he spoke. Hinata, I wouldn't lie about something like that to you. That really happened. So, I'll warn you now. While Sasuke might have the potential to be a powerful shinobi, he is too dangerous to befriend. His mind is sick with revenge and he will do anything to get it, including killing his best friend. Now, I will protect you no matter what, Hinata, but don't risk your life unnecessarily, that's my job. You just worry about getting stronger and fighting for what you feel is right, okay? Hinata nodded vigorously, not trusting herself to speak. Naruto had just sworn to give his life if necessary to protect. But more than that, he had encouraged her to get stronger and follow her beliefs. So, Hinata, enough picking on the poor Uchiha bastard. Why do you want to be a shinobi? In all the time Naruto had known Hinata, he'd never talked to her much and figured now was as good a time as any. I want to change my clan and myself, stuttered the girl. That is a great dream, Hinata, said Naruto with a fond smile. I know too that someday you'll make that dream come true if you work hard for it. Hinata smiled slightly before bowing her head in thanks. Hinata, no need to bow to me, I'm not an Uchiha bastard to be worshipped like a god. I'm just Naruto, future Hokage and all of that. Hinata actually laughed a bit at that. You laughed, said Naruto in amazement. You know, in all the years I've known you I've never heard you laugh before. It's nice, you should do that more often. With that comment Hinata blushed furiously and couldn't or rather wouldn't dare meet Naruto's eyes. Naruto checked his watch, he should be here right about now. And with that the door opened to reveal a silver-haired man with one eye covered by his forehead protector and the other looked rather sleepy. Why don't we go up on the roof, he suggested before he vanished. Great. He's a pervert, said Naruto. How do you know that? Asked Hinata curiously as she followed Naruto out of the classroom. Did you see that orange book sticking out of his pouch? Asked Naruto. Yes, said Hinata. Why does that make him a pervert? That book is the infamous Ika Ika Paradise, by the super pervert Jiraiya, also one of the Sannin, said Naruto. If he has that book it means he's a pervert. Oh, how do you know about that book? I caught the Hokage reading it once, said Naruto not wanting to go into too much detail. Oh, said Hinata. Your father reads it too. I saw him coming out of the adult bookstore once with nose in it. His face was a bit red, said Naruto. I'm pretty sure that most of the male population in this village is perverted. Ninja really are lacking interpersonal skills if they have to rely on a book for their kicks. Hinata blushed horribly at Naruto's comment, but she was mortified to find out that her father, her dignified, honorable, well-respected father, read that kind of smut. Then the thought struck her that she now had blackmail material, not that she would ever use such a thing. Finally Naruto and Hinata arrived. Kakashi and Sasuke were already waiting. What took you so long? Demanded a very unhappy and very angry Sasuke. What's the rush, especially when this pervert was already 3 hours late? Asked Naruto, jerking a thumb at their new sensei. Why don't we start with introductions? You know, what you like, don't like, hobbies, dreams for the future, that sort of things, said Kakashi. I'm Uzumaki Naruto, I like ramen, cup ramen, training taijutsu with Guy Sensei, reading technique scrolls, and pissing off the Uchiha bastard. I don't like the 3 minutes it takes to boil water for cup ramen, the Uchiha bastard, or people that would betray our village for a little more power. As a hobby I like to make special chakra weapons using my second chakra source because they look damn cool when I'm finished with them. My dream is to be able to protect my precious people by becoming Hokage and to find out who my parents were, rattled off Naruto enthusiastically, looking pointedly at the Uchiha bastard at the right moments. Very good Naruto, said Kakashi even though he didn't quite understand the second chakra part, now you Hinata-san. I like. Then she blushed after glancing at Naruto, I don't like mean people like Uchiha-san. My hobbies are flower arranging and singing. My dream is to change my clan and become a strong heir. Kakashi smiled through his face mask at the girl, very nice Hinata. Now you Sasuke. I don't like much. I hate a lot of things. My only hobby is to become stronger. Dreams are for weak people. My ambition is to kill a certain man and then rebuild my clan, said Sasuke coldly. Idiot, said Naruto, an ambition is the same a dream. They are both simply goals for the future. Sasuke glared hard at Naruto and radiated a fair amount of killer intent toward the blonde. Well, that's good everyone, I'm Hatake Kakashi, I like a lot of things. My hobbies are, I have dreams. In other words, you like to read porn and make money to buy more porn, which is also your hobby. Most of your dreams are probably perverted as well, said Naruto. Kakashi frowned under his mask. He'd never had a student that was so hostile toward him. Not even Sasuke was so hostile toward him. Anyway, meet me tomorrow at 5 on training field 7 for a survival exercise. You mean final test, said Naruto coolly. Exactly. Now don't eat or you'll puke. See you then, later, said Kakashi slightly irked. How was it possible for Naruto to know so much? Kakashi just shrugged it off. He'd missed a lot of reading time that morning and need to catch up, so he just disappeared in a puff of smoke. Pervert, mumbled Naruto. I'd be better off on my own, said Sasuke as he stalked off. You'd be dead on your own, said Naruto. And I'm supposed to be able to learn from that pervert, said Sasuke. Naruto was slightly annoyed that he didn't fully appreciate the situation. He was Yondaime Hokage's prized student. He might be a pervert, but he is probably the strongest ninjutsu user in the village other than the Hokage. What would you know? Questioned Sasuke, clearly pissed off that he'd been outdone by someone average yet again. Obviously more than you. Now I'm leaving, said Naruto. Want to come, Hinata? Hinata was shocked that Naruto invited her along, so she just nodded and followed along next to him. What do you want to do? We have the rest of the day off, said Naruto with a smile on his face. The cold exterior he was presenting to Sasuke simply vanished. I don't know, stuttered Hinata. I know, let's go see Ikugachi-san, said Naruto excitedly. I haven't visited him for a while now. Hinata nodded, though she didn't know who Ikugachi-san was. Naruto led her through town until they arrived at a small weaponsmith. Naruto entered the shop and signaled Hinata to follow him in. Hello Naruto, said the old smithy. I haven't seen you for a long time. I've been busy. Anyway, how's business? Not bad. I've had several Anbu in recently asking about that sword you made way back when. I guess Hayate-san has been bragging about the quality quite a bit, said Ikugachi. They want to know if you've made other weapons like it. Nah, I don't make my weapon to sell. They are just for fun. That reminds me, I was hoping I could make another one if that's okay. Of course, what do you plan to make this time? Asked Ikugachi excitedly. Well, you once told me that Kakashi-sensei used a fang. I was thinking I'd make one for him as a present, said Naruto with a grin. Certainly, but if I'm going to give you the materials, you'll have to make something for the shop to sell as well, said Ikugachi. Alright, said Naruto, do you want to help me, Hinata? I couldn't. She began to mumble. Sure you can, said Naruto. It is hard work, but it will help you get stronger quickly. Hinata was doubtful of her ability. Don't worry, Hyuga-san, said Ikugachi. Naruto-kun will be doing the hardest part. Hinata then nodded, albeit reluctantly. Great. Let's get to it. Fangs aren't that difficult to make as they are small. The difficult part is the chakra seals, said Naruto with a grin as he peeled off his black long-sleeve shirt, revealing only a black sleeveless undershirt. He had very well-toned arms from what Hinata could see, not that she was staring or anything. Anyway, Ikugachi-sensei will get you started. Ikugachi nodded and showed Hinata how to work the bellows and what to look for with the fire, while Naruto set to work folding the good steel into a blade. Hinata was amazed at how tough the work was, and she knew that she'd be sore the next day, but it all seemed worthwhile to her, especially if she was going to get stronger. Just as Naruto said, it didn't take very long to make the blade, but then he started with the seals. Hinata had never seen anything so complicated in her life than the sealing pattern that Naruto was using. I can see you've studied up on fang designs and their chakra patterns, said Ikugachi, studying the seal before he saw an oddity. What's this seal for? Well, you know how I have two chakras, right? Well, the second chakra tends to be very violent, almost to the point of overwhelming the senses. So, I've got to put that control seal in to eliminate that feeling and still allow the second chakra's strengthening effect to work properly, explained Naruto as he began the final sealing process. Very interesting, Naruto, said Ikugachi appreciatively. Naruto really did do excellent work. The blade was perfect and he made it so quickly, still nothing was lost in the power of the blade. It wasn't nearly as complex as the first sword Naruto ever made. Excellent work, Naruto, said Ikugachi. However, it has gotten rather late and I'm sure that Hiyashi-sama will be worried about his daughter. Can I make the second weapon next week? Asked Naruto as he tested his now completed chakra fang. Of course, now run along you scamp, said Ikugachi with a broad smile at the thought of being able to sell another of Naruto's masterpieces. Naruto walked Hinata home. He earned a rather scolding look from Hiyashi, but Naruto could tell that it was out of worry for Hinata's safety and not for the fact that he was a demon vessel. See you tomorrow, Naruto-kun, said Hinata without much of a stutter. At some point that day she'd become much more comfortable around Naruto without noticing it. Just remember to eat. You know that pervert is going to be late anyway, said Naruto with a grin. Hinata nodded and smiled at Naruto's antics. It was a smile that was not missed by Hiyashi either. Naruto arrived the next morning to the training grounds on time. Originally he planned to show up later than Kakashi, but he forgot to tell Hinata to do the same thing. Besides, he was already up well before then training his taijutsu with Guy. Morning Hinata, said Naruto stifling a yawn. He was tired from his workout, not from a lack of sleep. Morning Naruto-kun, replied Hinata. Naruto could see that she'd been up early training as well. Then he noticed a bit of soot on her coat. Did you go to Ikugachi's this morning? Asked Naruto. Hinata looked slightly panicked. Thought that, but my father. That's great Hinata. Ikugachi can teach you a lot and it is really good exercise, said Naruto proudly. Don't worry, I won't tell your father. If you want, I'll even cover for you and say that you were training with me in the morning. Hinata smiled with a few tears in her eyes and bowed her head appreciatively. She knew that if her father ever found out she was learning such a thing that he'd be very cross with her. Hey now, what did I say about the being so formal stuff? Asked Naruto. Hinata looked up with a slight blush. I'm trying, she mumbled. Well, keep trying, you'll get there, said Naruto with a smile. Unfortunately that smile instantly vanished with the Uchiha bastard showed up. Neither Naruto nor Hinata said anything to him when he arrived. Hinata was honestly scared of what Sasuke might do to her if she did befriend him. Naruto just hated him. Unfortunately Naruto knew what was coming and sighed heavily. Uchiha, I don't like you and you don't like me, but we have a problem. Kakashi-sensei is going to test us and he is probably going to test us on teamwork somehow. But first I imagine he'll do something to divide us. So, I would like to propose an agreement. We work together this one time to become official genin and then we can hate each other again as if nothing ever happened. Sasuke was actually considering Naruto's words, but then he remembered that Naruto hated him as was probably just saying that to pull another one over on him. No. Naruto sighed. Fine. I guess Hinata and I will pass this test without you. Naruto knew that would irk Sasuke more than anything and yet he didn't react. It was hours later before the pervert finally showed up. Sorry I'm late, there was this old lady and she. Liar! Yelled Naruto at the pervert. Anyway, today is your final genin exam. What are we doing? Asked Sasuke. You just need to get a bell from me to pass, said Kakashi with a shrug. But there are only 2 bells, stuttered Hinata. That's right, so one of you will definitely be going back to the academy, said Kakashi. Oh, and you only have until noon. He then set an alarm clock on one of the stumps. Go, said Kakashi as he vanished. The 3 disappeared from view. Naruto and Hinata went to the same place. You were right Naruto-kun, he did try to divide us from the start, said Hinata with only the slightest stutter. So how do we get that Uchiha bastard to work with us? Asked Naruto. But, we don't need him to pass, said Hinata. Unfortunately we do, said Naruto. All genin teams are to be 3-man cells. Without that bastard we're only 2. Oh, said Hinata slightly embarrassed for herself. Don't worry, not many can figure that out. Uchiha bastard is supposed to be a genius and yet hasn't figured it out. As you can see he's getting his handed to him by Kakashi-sensei, said Naruto pointing over his shoulder where Sasuke had just been buried up to his neck. So what do we do? Asked Hinata. We work together and hope for the best, said Naruto with a grimace. We should have a plan then, said Hinata. Yeah, you and I are both strongest in taijutsu so we'll have to attack from that angle, said Naruto. Do you think if I kept him busy you'd be able to close the tenketsu in one arm and a leg? I can try but I'm not very good, said Hinata. You're a genin Hinata, you're not supposed to be very good yet. I'm not even that good yet and I've been training for a very long time. He's a Junin for a reason Hinata. He doesn't expect us to win or even come close, but we've got to try, said Naruto encouragingly. Hinata smiled slightly at Naruto's words, they weren't the most convincing but they did make her feel better about the situation. Okay, then we'll do our best. Naruto smiled at Hinata's words, Now that's more like, let's go. Naruto and Hinata both moved in quickly to attack. Kakashi wasn't too surprised that these two worked together. He'd listened to their entire planning session and their discussion while they were waiting for him to arrive. He was however surprised when Naruto attacked using his old sensei's taijutsu style. His moves were a bit sloppy, but they were better than genin level for taijutsu. Hinata attacked predictably with the gentle fist, though she was very sloppy in her movements. Kakashi could see that skill wasn't her problem but more her confidence. Each of her strikes was slightly hesitant. The pair attacked him with pretty good teamwork. However, their attacks were uncoordinated and didn't flow together the way most successful teams work together. He knew though that if they trained together more often they would develop a very complementary style of fighting. While Hinata and Naruto were fighting to gain position and the right opportunity to grab the bells, the sneaky Uchiha bastard came in and took a bell, then retreated. Bastard! Screamed Naruto after the retreating form of the Uchiha. Don't worry about him, Naruto-kun, said Hinata as she continued to fight Kakashi. I need your help here. Naruto refocused his energy on Kakashi and helping Hinata. You two don't have to continue fighting me, said Kakashi as he continued to parry their attacks. You've already passed. I know, said Naruto with a grin, but this is kind of fun. Hinata was shocked, but then she realized she too was having fun. For the first time ever, she was having fun fighting. It wasn't training or trying to get stronger. It was just fighting for the sake of competition, and it was fun. Yeah, it is. Kakashi smiled and continued to fight the pair, even increasing the intensity with which he fought. Naruto, who taught you this fighting style? Gai-sensei has been training me in taijutsu since I was 6, said Naruto with a smile. I'm not very good yet, but I'm getting better. You're certainly not bad with the style, said Kakashi. A few more years and you'll probably master it. I hope so, said Naruto. Learning anything that was once the Yondaime's is so cool. It is kind of like honoring his sacrifice by carrying on his knowledge, you know. Kakashi smiled fondly at the boy. You're absolutely right, Naruto. Hinata was amazed that Naruto and Kakashi were having a conversation while fighting so intensely at the same time. It took every last bit of her concentration just to stay in the fight. She suddenly realized what it meant to be a genius, or rather, as Naruto preferred to say, gifted. You know that alarm went off about 20 minutes ago? Asked Kakashi as he ducked a particularly vicious kick to his head. I'm sure Sasuke is wondering where we are. But I haven't even hit you yet, said Naruto with a slight pout. And you probably won't, said Kakashi. I'm sure you can tell that I'm not trying very hard. I know, said Naruto with a pout before jumping away, effectively ending the fight. Hinata breathed a sigh of relief. She didn't know how much longer she could keep up. As it was, she'd stopped trying to hit Tenketsu because she would have completely depleted all of her chakra reserves. Come on, let's go meet Sasuke so I can officially graduate you all, said Kakashi. Why are they still here? Asked Sasuke. They don't the bells, so they fail, right? No. They are the only ones that understood the real purpose of the test, teamwork. However, I did say that if you got a bell you would pass. So, congratulations, you've all passed my test, said Kakashi. Meet me by the aqueduct tomorrow at 9 o'clock to start our real missions. Wait a second, Kakashi-sensei, said Naruto, stopping the pervert from disappearing. Yes, Naruto, said Kakashi. Hinata and I have a gift for you, said Naruto, taking out small bundle of red silk. Ikuguchi-sensei once told me that you used to use a chakra fang, but it broke on a mission. He didn't tell me much about it. Anyway, I made this for you. Naruto then held out the red silk bundle. Kakashi looked curiously at the bundle and took it from Naruto to reveal a crimson red tube. It was a fang and sheath. I give you the Kyuubi's fang, said Naruto with a smile. Hinata helped me make it, so it's from the both of us. Kakashi grasped the hand and pulled free the blade. He was in awe. This was even higher quality than his father's old chakra fang. It was perfectly balanced and it received chakra perfectly. Naruto, this is. Anyway, Hinata and I have some celebrating to do, said Naruto, grabbing her hand and disappearing with her. Kakashi was now staring at the empty field. He never believed he would wield a chakra fang again, but he knew now that would not be the case. He was truly blessed with outstanding students. Break. Naruto-kun, said Hinata, why did you say it was from me too? You helped me make it, said Naruto, so it was from both of us. Hinata smiled and nodded, thank you Naruto-kun. No problem, said Naruto with a grin, want to get some ramen? Hinata nodded and followed Naruto through town to his favorite ramen stand. Together they ate ramen noodles and talked a bit. I've always been interested in healing but father would never approve, said Hinata with only a slight stutter. Why does your father have to approve? If you want to become stronger you should do whatever you feel is right. If learning healing will make you stronger then learn healing, said Naruto confidently. But I don't even know where to begin, said Hinata defeated. Okay then, next stop is Konoha Hospital, said Naruto, we'll go to the hospital library. They have hundreds of scroll on healing in the human body. If you want to learn healing that is the best place to start. Besides, I doubt your father would be bothered much he saw you studying anatomy at home. You could just say that you were learning better ways to use the gentle fist. Any scroll with healing jutsu you could just stash in my apartment and study them after daily training or something. You really think that would work? Asked Hinata shyly. Of course it would, said Naruto, your father is smart enough that he would let you learn whatever you want as long as you maintain your image for the clan and the clan elders. Hinata was shocked that Naruto could say such a thing about her father. It was unbelievable, and more than that she thought he might be correct. Anyway, let's go, said Naruto paying for their noodles and leading the way to the hospital library. Once inside Naruto found a medic nin to recommend some good scrolls for Hinata to begin studying. He didn't really like Naruto and at first he didn't want to help until he learned that it was for a Hyuga. Hinata thought it was odd that the medic nin wanted nothing to do with Naruto but was only too happy to help Hinata. But then no many people were ever very nice to Naruto and she couldn't understand why. Even so, he never once let it bother him. Once they were on their way to Naruto's apartment to drop of the jutsu scrolls, Hinata decided to ask him about it. Naruto-kun, how can you stand the way people treat you? She asked timidly. Precious people, Naruto answered with a giant smile before continuing on. What do you mean? She asked curiously. Who really cares what everyone else thinks? I've got my precious people and that is enough to make me happy, said Naruto. Hinata didn't quite understand but followed behind nonetheless. However, her mind was awhirl with this new information.